Well, that is fancy. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Channeling Erik. I am not Elisa. I am Michelle Gray, in case you don't know. And sitting across from me is the lovely and the amazing Denise Ramon. And
Hello.
hello. And Denise and I were just chatting away and having a conversation. And we are speaking to someone that is in spirit that has joined us today. And it's so funny because I feel like I have a talk show. I'm like, and welcome. And now, like, the curtain's opening, and it's Maggie Smith
Oh,
who
I
we
can
have
feel
here.
her. I can
Yeah.
just feel her.
hmm
Oh,
So she's interesting because Denise and I were just warming up with her a little bit and talking, and she's pretty interesting. She's strong. She's very strong energy, and boy does she make her presence known, not in any way that she wants her words or cadence to be twisted whatsoever. She's got a wit to her and a strength. And although, thank you, there are questions that have come forward, but Maggie had ripped up the paper, crumpled it up, and tossed it behind. And she had said that when you're in your element and you are creating and you are ready to perform or to do something, you don't always need the script. You get right into the role. So she has things that she would like to share. And so Denise and I are going to let her come on in and speak. So we'll drum roll. Erik will drum roll. and come on in. So welcome, Maggie Smith and Erik, of course. And Erik, say hello to everybody.
Eric is saying hello. He's like real excited for this. He likes this new platform. He says it's like he gets to bounce back and forth to us. He's showing it like,
Yeah.
and I don't know how, it's you're in Canada, I'm in the US, Texas, and but he's showing me jumping back and forth. That's so cool.
Time travel. This is
Yeah,
time travel.
yeah, yeah.
Hello, it's time travel. And it is interesting because we do this, Denise, you and I do this when we talk,
Mhm.
and we have Erik come in or whomever else, and so we're used to bouncing the energy around with us, but we've not recorded it in this way for
No.
everybody. So this is very interesting. So Maggie, thank you, and thank you, Erik, for bringing Maggie in today. Maggie had said before we started that she's been in many interviews and spoken before, but she says this one, and she actually used the word peculiar. Well, this is quite peculiar. So, thank you, Maggie, for being here. And I guess what I'll say, Denise, can you explain kind of how does Maggie feel? How does her energy feel? What are you picking up?
Well, she's in such bliss. I mean, my cheeks are hurting from grinning because I feel her energy. She's just in bliss. Um, but she's also very how she shows me she's really standing in her shoes. And when she says that to me, shows me that it's like she's standing in her power, because now is it's like she doesn't have any interruptions, I guess would be a way of saying it. And there's no time for nonsense, she says.
Mm-hmm.
No time at all for nonsense. And but yeah, very strong and just very she's quite humorous, quite funny,
Yeah,
I
she's
like
quite a
her.
wit, a sharp
Yes,
wit.
that's what I like, that
Yeah.
that dry wit, she just doesn't you think of her characters to be very polite and stuff, except for some of them,
hmm
but and I just feel like who she really is was
hmm
transported into her characters because she
hmm
was very straightforward in her speaking, she says, because um, she would, she's telling me she would hear people talk and they would be misunderstood and perceived a different way. And she wanted to make sure she was never perceived helpless or hopeless or this little woman or whatever. She always wanted for people to know her strength. And she's just very strong, very powerful, and just hilarious, just
Yeah.
funny,
Yeah,
just fun.
I can feel that too. I can feel it. And as you were speaking, she was showing me a flash of her eyes. So when
Mm,
you were saying about I don't want like no one's going to perceive me as being helpless or anything, and she zoomed right in on her eyes, and there was a certain way that she would hold her mouth and her face in certain circumstances so that there was not a question of her presence. And when she meant business, but she also knew how to rub elbows, like hang out with people in a way
hmm.
that she was able to match match the situation and not in an inauthentic way. Because I'll say one thing I pick up about Maggie Smith is she was authentic. She was
Yes.
authentic to who she was, and that was important to her. Not the limelight, not the flashes, not the not any of that, but really to hold that presence of who she really was, and she never forgot where she came from and what she had experienced.
Yeah, she's saying that was because she held true to herself. All of that other stuff was a byproduct of that's what you get when you hold true to yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to go looking for any of that because when you're in your truth, your authentic self, as I say, and she wanted me to say, as I say, not what she said. When you're in your truth, she goes, "Thank you, darling." Um, when you're in your truth, you don't have to be concerned about any of the other stuff, she says.
Yeah. And where, like, so Maggie, where do you feel that all developed from? Were you always like that, or did was that through experiences, or how did you kind of come into that? Because that is something that a lot of us walking through this life and with all the different things that we're experiencing, finding our authenticity, it really isn't something that we have to find, but how do we recognize it? How did you recognize it?
She's showing me that a lot of it came from her mother.
Okay.
Her mother, she learned from her mother. Her mother was a lot about being who you are is the way she's shown me about her mother was about always speaking the truth of who you are. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like she showed me she got a lot that from her mother, as well as her father too. And she said she grew up in a time when that's all you had was your integrity. And you know your authentic self is she keeps wanting me to say as I say because those are not her words but that there was a period of time when that's all you had. And so her mother made it real clear that this it's precious. You don't get to give it away and then come back and get it back again. This is something that you need to keep close to you and guard it, you know, with your words, she says.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and she says I give that all to my mom.
Mm. And so you grew up in a time that so the war, so it was a World War II,
Hmm.
had ended in 1945, was it? 45? I'm not 100% sure. Sorry for everybody if I got that wrong. But within that time period, and you were raised in Britain, was in Britain, is where you
Yes.
lived.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about what that experience, like what did you feel like at that time? What kinds of things were like, what was that period of growing up like?
Well, she says there was a lot of, you know, a lot of uncertainty because you didn't know. And she's showing me that yes, you could hear missiles or I'm assuming they're missiles, is what she showed me the noise. And
Mm-hmm.
she could hear things. And she says, and of course, she was very young, but she says she could she's telling me that she's very sensitive even as a kid. So she
Mm-hmm.
you could see the fear on people and it was this was a time to pull together as families, she said, and this is what we did. And
Mm-hmm.
she says, her parents, and I feel like other relatives, the adults, really worked hard to make sure that the kids had some joy in their life, like I don't know if it was like daily. She says, well, they would like go over a list of things that we're grateful for. It was a lot about that, because she says there was a lot of scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like from her mother, she's saying, would talk to us about what we did have. And
Mm-hmm.
she said because it was a very scary time because you didn't know how things are going. She said for her, though, because she was so young, she wasn't totally aware of everything
Mm-hmm.
that was going
Mm-hmm.
on. And she's
Right.
very grateful for that she didn't know everything.
Right. And so were you involved in the theater or in like as you grew older, was there expression in that way that you started to enjoy, or do you have anything to say about how you kind of came across that in your life?
Hmm. She says, she contributes that to the war in a sense because they had to entertain themselves, and this was fun for her and other family members. They got to pretend to be something else.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just
I'm seeing
brought,
little lines with Kurt like making little almost like with puppets with because I can see socks, I can see sheets hanging. Yeah,
yeah, she said, and she goes, that's exactly what it was
yeah,
with socks and that.
yeah,
And she's saying, this is how we did this. And she says, and as a kid, we would get lost in that, and then we would be in that and forget about everything else.
yeah.
And she says that really drew her interest looking into that. She said, of course, when she's a kid, she wasn't thinking about being an actor, or something, because that wasn't really there when she was growing up. But as she got older, the love of the theater and performing, it just brought her back to that place in her heart of that warmth that she felt as she was growing up. And that was
Hmm.
her love for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you and I want to say Miss Maggie. I don't know why I want to call you Miss Maggie, but
She said, you can call me
okay.
Miss Maggie. You can call her Madam Maggie too if you want, she says.
I just like Miss Maggie. It's got such a nice little ring to it. Madam Maggie, however you would like me to say it. But so it's really interesting because I can feel that joy and in understanding how we work through life, and it's finding joy. It's that natural joy, not joy that we're trying to force to do something. We're trying to make it, but what is that natural joy? And sometimes we go through experiences in life where we forget that joy, we forget where that is, we forget that childlike part of us where we like to make sock puppets and where we had fun with our family and there was all kinds of laughter because I could see and hear the laughter in your family with some of the jokes and things that were that everybody did. Um so joy would have been when you did some of those movies and some of those roles, and just kind of flipping through my mind with some of those roles, there's like a magical essence. So we talked about that, the Secret Garden, which I actually watched recently and had no idea that you were in it, and saw you, and there's all these magical feels to some of these roles that you did. And I would bet that that really brought out that childhood joy in you when you would fall into those roles.
She says absolutely it did. And those all those roles resonated with her because she tells me on in a lot of areas, and not just that one, but she was able to do some ad-libbing, like kind of like what we're doing now, she
Yeah.
says. And but she says it was it was all magical. And I really get this sense from her that she has a, I don't know if she had it when she was here, but there's a strong connection to her with the elementals. I just feel
Mm,
like she
mm-hmm.
really has a connection with them. Not that she is one, but she
Right.
just has a strong connection. And she has a very strong connection, she tells me, to the earth, to
Yes.
Mother Earth, to that. She's showing me the dirt, just a
Yeah.
real strong connection.
Connection to that.
Mhm.
So if you in your perspective now, Miss Maggie, and seeing things from a broader perspective, and you look back at our physical life and where we are in our world right now, what do you think is important for us to, one of the things, I know there's many things that you could say, but what is one of the things that you could really look at to share with our viewers that would help people wherever they're at in their life to focus on to help them move through some of the heaviness that many people are feeling and the difficulty, the pain, because we acknowledge that, everybody's where they're at working through something. And, is there anything that you can share with your wisdom and your viewpoint right now?
She goes, she goes, so now I have wisdom. And she says that facetiously because I don't feel like some people here thought she had wisdom, you know. So she's going like she gets to own that, like use that part that she has.
Mm,
And she says, we all have wisdom, but she says, and when you were talking, she was talking about how this is really heavy times and mental illness is on the rise, is what she's
mm,
showing me.
mm-hmm,
And she says, this really holds a place close to her heart, if you will, she says. So I don't know if there was mental illness within her family or whatever, and she's not going into details. She doesn't even want
mm-hmm,
to dive into that
mm-hmm,
direction.
mm-hmm,
But she says for those who struggle with mental illness, and she goes, we all have a touch of it.
mm-hmm,
Some have a little bit more than others, she says, but
mm-hmm.
she's saying focus on what you're doing best today. If all you're doing best today is crying, then that's your best today.
Yeah, yeah.
And she says, because then you're focusing on something that you're doing. And
Mm-hmm,
and that will get you closer to that heart center space that we're all striving to get to.
mm-hmm,
And she's the way she's doing it, she says, hold on. It's like she's holding on to the pole, like on a carousel horse, holding on to it. She goes, just hold on and do what you need to do. And she says, most important though is be the way she don't want me to use the word authentic, but that's what I want to use. But it's like, be honest, she says, be honest with
yeah,
yourself. You
yes.
don't have to be honest to anybody else, but be honest with you.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's really important because it's important for us to um and I love that you said that, Maggie, because it's important to us to understand that it's not about what we think others need to hear,
Mhm.
but are we being honest with ourselves? And that can take a little time and
Yeah.
a little compassion with ourselves as we do that, because that's not necessarily something that's going to change overnight. But the more that we can do that as compassionately can, that really is a wonderful place to start. It really is.
She said yes. And she says, because we're all, where you are, everybody else is there or even a little bit further behind. So when you're grasping to get what it is you're needing on the outside from other people, you're gravitate. She didn't say gravitate. You're grabbing people who are where you are, so you're grabbing their stuff. So she says that's why it's important. She says to be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
first. And if the honesty is, I just be honest. I like being a bitch, she says, or um, um, I like being mean, or when I'm sad, I get this, or just be honest. She says, be
Yeah.
honest with yourself,
Yeah.
or I'm lonely, or
Yeah.
I feel betrayed.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself. She says that was one of the hardest things. She says for her was to speak. Um, I feel like more so in her 20s and 30s to speak what was really going on with her.
Yeah. Yeah. And that takes practice too. That
Yeah,
takes practice. And Miss Maggie, with your roles, did that help you with that? Did that help you to be able to speak honestly in your personal life, to practice through roles?
absolutely. She says, because, and she's saying she can't speak for every person, but for her, when she would get into that role, any role, it empowered her because she could see what she was capable of. She could see herself transform into other things. And
Hmm.
it just built confidence within her. And
Yeah.
she said, absolutely. And she goes, in some of these roles or some of the lines or whatever, she says, we're hitting real close to home for her because some of those roles or whatever the scene was in is stuff that she was working through as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm. So I'm going to ask you, was there anything when you transitioned and you're out of your body and settled, was there anything that you had in realization or the remembering of who you are, truly who you are? Is there anything that tickled Miss Maggie, your personality, as this was different, or I didn't expect this? Is there anything that pops up that you can share with us?
She goes, oh, honey, she says, I had to laugh because I took myself so serious.
Hmm. Yeah.
And she says, there's nothing to take serious
Yeah.
other than the love that you hold for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the way she says, oh, honey, yeah.
Hmm. I could feel her so strong. Isn't she strong? Her presence?
Oh, she's very strong.
Hmm.
She feels tiny,
Yes.
but yet very strong. And she has
Yes.
a scent to her, some kind of scent. I can smell her, some kind of, and when I say I can smell her, it's like this,
Powder, is it a powder floral kind of smell?
yeah, and it's almost like, but it feels, she says balance. And I said, yes, it just feels that way, the way, I don't know, it just
Mm.
feels good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She's Erik is pushing to say this because he already knows what she's gonna say. And he's like, ask her, ask. So I'm gonna say it, and she already knows too, because we've already said this. We've had a little conversation beforehand. So, Miss Maggie, is there anything that no one else knows that you would like to share?
She said, no. She's
Erik,
saying no.
Erik, would you like to share what she said
She says
or
no,
what you said to say?
but I feel like though she's given me a little bit of feeling like she's had some heartthrob crushes on some of her leading men.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I could
But
imagine. Yes.
but and I'm asking, did you ever cross the line or anything? And she's saying that she got to observe from others who crossed the line.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I'm sure you saw a lot, Miss Maggie. I'm sure you observed and witnessed a lot in your time.
Yeah, and as I get from her that she's not saying that she was squeaky clean, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, but there's no sense in, she goes, everybody wants to know the dirty laundry,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody wants to do it.
Isn't that the truth? Because I got a pile behind me. That's why it's blurred out, ladies and gentlemen. That's why it's blurred out right back here.
But and I just, and I just get like that's part of her integrity of keeping that, whatever it is. And she says we all have something, and
Yeah.
it's just not necessary, she says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, Eric's just having her leave it at that.
yeah.
Eric and,
Eric's Mr. Wisecracker. He was cracking some funny ones.
well, they're right now having a little bit of cocktails together, it looks like.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it feels like more of like a brandy or a sherry they're
Yeah.
drinking or something.
That's what she showed me in the beginning.
Did she? Because and the
Yes.
reason why I say it's that because of the type of glass that
Yeah.
it's
Those
in.
little, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and I
So
saw the same thing. Yeah.
yeah. So it's something that, so they're over there, they're having cocktails together, Erik and Maggie are, and they're just having a good time. Erik says she will not let me break out a cigar, so I don't know. And I'm like, I don't, and I'm like, do you really smoke over there? And he says, we can do whatever we want, he says.
That's right. That's right. Don't have to do anything, but you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Miss Maggie. Thank you. And thank you, Erik. And we love you both. And everybody watching, thank you for joining us and spending time. We hope that you feel the energy because for all of you that can feel it and can sense it, there is so much love in this space and so much just sit and absorb it. So if you're sitting here, just take a moment, put your hand on your heart and take a nice deep breath because I know there's just an abundance of it sending out to all of you as you're watching.
absolutely.
So,
She's sprinkling like
yeah.
fairy dust or whatever, just
Yes.
sprinkling stuff on
Yeah.
everybody. She's doing this. That's so cute.
Yeah.
I
That's
love it.
awesome. Well, thanks, Denise. This is
You're,
fun. This is fun. I'm sure we'll get to do this again. This is
This
fun.
was a lot of fun, and I want to thank Maggie for coming forward and
Yes.
allowing me to be her voice as well as
Yes.
you being her
Yes.
voice. And Erik, you're such a gentleman.
Yes.
And he's I don't know, they're off. They're going and doing the sipping still. So
And he just yelled backwards to make sure he included, love you, mom.
yeah,
Love you, mom. Yeah.
too
All
cute.
right.
All
All right.
right,
Take care, everybody. We'll see you again.
all right, bye.
Bye.